Story time on how I caught my pastor trying to sleep with his dog. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So my family is very religious and we go to church every single Sunday. We also go to church every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As you can imagine, since we're there 24/7, my parents have a great relationship with our pastor. He invites us over all the time and my mom even cooks for him since he has no wife and kids, but he has a dog. Well, one day my mom cooked for him and told me to go drop it off to surprise him with his favorite dish. I casually go over there as I've done many times before and I knock on the door, but he didn't answer. I see his car out front, so I know he's here, so I tried going to the back of the house. He has a window in his room where he would be able to see me. I went to the back of the house so I can get his attention to open the door and give him the food. When I looked into that window, my soul left. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I caught my pastor trying to sleep with his dog. Okay, so boom, like I said, I go to the back of his house where I know I could get his attention. A window in the back that shows right into his room. I maybe overstepped my boundaries by going to the back of his house, but I was excited to give him this food that my mom cooked for him because again, this was his favorite dish. Well, when I got to his window and started knocking on it, my pastor was completely naked. But oh no, not just that. His dog was on the bed and he was actively trying to put his hot dog in the bun. I just couldn't believe it and I ran back home. I didn't even want him to know that I seen that. I just told my mom he wasn't home and she should just drop it off later, and I just ran to my room. Now he gives me nothing but the creeps, but I haven't told anyone. Should I say something or should I turn a blind eye? Story time on how I caught my 76-year-old grandpa sleeping with my 14-year-old daughter. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So one day my grandpa came over to see my family. My husband was at work, so it was only me and my daughter. My daughter is 14, my grandpa is 76, and I'm 39. After my grandpa visited, the next day he came back to take my daughter out to eat. They left at 5 p.m. and came back at 12 a.m. And when they came back home, my daughter wanted my grandpa to go in the room with her. So he went upstairs with her, and naturally I found that very suspicious. Cause I mean, like, that's weird. My grandpa slept over that night, and the next day I asked them if they wanted to come visit my best friend with me. Both my grandpa and my daughter said no, but while they were in the kitchen, I put a camera in her room and in the living room. I left and not even 10 minutes went by and I saw everything. Like and follow for part 2 on how I caught my 76-year-old grandpa sleeping with my 14-year-old daughter. Okay, so boom, like I said, I got suspicious and I put a camera in my daughter's room and in my living room. I left, and in less than 10 minutes, I looked at the cameras and I saw everything. I quickly drove back home, and I mean, I was speeding, child. While I was driving back, I screenshotted the camera of my grandpa on top of my daughter while they were both naked. I busted down my house door and I heard moaning. I ran into the room and I kicked my grandpa in the nuts, and I beat my daughter. I called her dad, who came less than 5 minutes after me. While my husband handled my grandpa, I sat with my daughter and she told me that he was taking advantage of her, that he forced himself on her. She's now in therapy and he's in jail. Watch out for pervy. Story time on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So I was 14 at the time and my mom had a long-time boyfriend. My mom and this guy been together for about 3 years. Unfortunately, my dad is in jail, so I only talk to him over the phone when he calls. I always got creepy vibes from my mom boyfriend and I told her about this. I told her how he would put his hands a little bit too close to my booty, and when he would hug me, I can like feel his down there area. And when he would kiss me on the cheeks, every now and then he would always do a mistake and kiss me on my lips. She didn't believe me because she never seen anything. Well, one day he took it extremely too far. My mom was at work and I was alone with her boyfriend. I always stay in my room away from him because again, he's creepy, but this night it didn't stop him from coming into my room and violating me. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, like I said, her boyfriend came into my room and violated me. I tried to run away, but he pinned me on the bed and he started kissing me on my neck. Then he snatched my shirt off and my breast was exposed. At that moment, my phone started ringing. The ring distracted my mom's boyfriend, and at that moment, I took my phone and I ran out the house. Yes, I ran out the house with my breast exposed. By the grace of God, it was my dad calling from jail. jail. I missed his call, so I had to wait till he called me back. So in the meantime, I called my mom. I told my mom everything and she told me shut up. She hung up the phone and did nothing. She even called me a liar. I ran to my best friend's house with my breast exposed and her parents took me in. Eventually, my dad called me back and he saved my life. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, like I said, after my mom didn't believe me, I ran to my best friend's house with my breast exposed and her parents took me in. I waited for my dad to call me back from jail and he eventually did. I answered the phone and I cried telling him everything of what just happened. My dad from jail became my hero. He sent a lot of his friends to my mom's house to handle that guy. Of course, we pressed charges and he's going to be serving time in jail. All my dad's friends helped me pack and they all brought me to my dad's mom's house. My mom came home to an empty house and my dad's mother has been granted custody of me. My mom was horrible. I hated living with her. Her boyfriend was physically abusive while she was verbally abusive. She didn't believe me and that hurt, but my dad believed me and saved my life. Can't wait to see him in a year.
This story time is how my house caught on fire the night before Christmas. By the way, I was 9 at the time. So, like always, everyone wrapped their gifts and put it underneath the Christmas tree. And I can remember that year, my parents really went all out for Christmas. They decorated all around the house and inside. My mom went as far as putting lights all over the railings. There were many gifts under the tree, and I seen that most were for me, and I was really excited. By the way, I'm the only child, but my cousins were going to come over also. So there were gifts for them too. After everything was decorated, my mom cooked the night before and everyone went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I get shaken by my dad telling me that we need to get out of the house. I was so confused until I walked outside of my room and the whole second floor was smoking. When we ran downstairs, my living room and kitchen was on fire and it was so traumatizing to see. And I'll explain why my house caught on fire in part 2. So come back for part 2. This is part 2 of how my house caught on fire the night before Christmas. So like I said before, I was woken up in the middle of the night by my dad telling me that we needed to get out of the house. And the first floor was in flames, but we managed to make it out. When we left, we immediately went to my grandma's house. I asked my parents, why did our house catch on fire? And my grandma sent me away to go play in her indoor porch. I was upset because all the presents were gone and I was pretty sure my bedroom was destroyed. When I was sitting in the porch, I overheard the adults' conversation. And remember how I told you guys my parents went all out with decorations? Well, something happened to one of the Christmas lights cables and it caught on fire and it spread all throughout the house. I was upset, of course, but good thing my dad was up. If not, we probably all would have been burnt in our sleep. Anyways, happy holidays. This story time is from a follower and she really needs advice and wants to tell her story. Also, if you've been through traumatic experiences, then I suggest you not watch this. And I hope TikTok doesn't try to take this video down. By the way, we're calling her Danielle and she's 13. Danielle at the moment is pregnant by misfortunate events and she was by a guy who she was talking to for a couple months. They never really made it official. She's afraid to tell her parents because she says she wasn't really allowed to date. And she says she thinks it's all her fault because she should have never went to the guy's house. Danielle is very uncomfortable with her body and doesn't want the baby. And doesn't want to look like a bad person for aborting a baby, even though she really doesn't want it, especially since she's only in the 7th grade. Legally, she can't get it on her own. And she's looking into dangerous ways of getting rid of the baby herself. She says she feels alone and doesn't have no one to talk to about it. Danielle says she thinks no one really cares about her. So at this moment, she just needs some advice or words of encouragement. So please comment down below. Okay, story time. And this story is a little bit long, so I might have to make a part 2. And if you know me personally or ever went to my school, click off the video now. Anyways, and also these are just rumors that went around. I don't know if it was exactly true or not, but they seemed a little bit legit. Anyways, it was this girl, she was a senior at the time, I was a freshman, and she was a senior resident for a teacher. And it was rumored that she was talking to him, texting him, going to his house, and by the way, at the time, I think he had a wife and kids, I don't know. And after she graduated, she basically wrote this whole blog about him, talking about him. One of my friends showed me the blog. And guys, I did not know about the situation at all until I became a senior and I was a senior resident. Okay, this story just way too long. I'm gonna come back for a part 2 right after this video. Okay, so this is part 2 of the high school scandal. Okay, so like I said before, I became a senior resident. And let me say this now, I did not know any of this had happened until I became a senior resident. And everyone had told me. And where was I? I don't know, living my best life. Was not focused. And when I was a senior resident, people were like, you should watch out for this and that with him. And I'm like... And another thing, she was his last senior resident. That means for those 3 years, no one wanted to be his senior resident. And I didn't know. But I was only his senior resident for a month. And it was because he had left school. A lot of people say it was because of that situation. And it was like he just disappeared. He left no work for the students to do, I guess. I don't know. And like he was basically cut and everybody stopped. He just ghosted. And I'm like, now all of a sudden that I'm a senior resident, you leave. And to this day, I still wonder like what happened to him. This threesome is about why I refused to ever live in a college dorm room. So my sophomore year, I was able to get a room with my best friend, Tiana. I was happy because we always talked about getting a room together, but sooner or later, I realized it was a big mistake. There was one time I let her borrow my Ugg boots because it was cold outside, but she started wearing them every day. When she finally returned them, they were wet and dirty. I was irritated, and she said that she would give me the money to get new ones, but she never did. She then started asking if she could borrow a shirt. Me being nice, I let her. But she then started taking advantage. Girl was taking all of my things without permission. My jacket, pants, shorts, everything. And she wouldn't even clean them before giving them back to me. I confronted her about it, and she got mad at me saying it wasn't a big deal. A couple weeks later, I confronted her again about my things going missing, and she pretended not to know. When she turned around to leave the room, I looked down, and the bitch stole my damn underwear. This story time is how I was scammed out of $20,000. Yes, $20,000. At the time, I was 26 and I was looking for ways for making extra money on the side. So basically, I was looking into investing my money into some sort of stock or company. I didn't know much about investing, but I would hear people talk about it all the time. A couple weeks later, I had a friend, and we're going to call him David. He invited me into an investment club presentation for multiple business. I was new to all of this, so I wanted to take a look at what he was talking about. There was one particular company that had an app for working out, and they sold workout clothing and weights. I thought their pitch was great and chose to speak with them. After weeks of discussion, there were contracts and everything. Me and a couple people invested into this company with our money, but the company members went ghost after a week. And this is when it gets crazy, like for part 2. This is part 2 story time of how I was scammed out of $20,000. So, like I said earlier, there was our particular workout app company I invested into. We filled out contracts. I gave them my part of the investment, which was $20,000. But after a couple days, they completely went ghost. I tried reaching out to the other people that supposedly invested, but none of them got back to me. I was so confused. So then I did my research on the company, which I should have done before, but there was no information. So then I went and talked to my friend David about it. When I showed him the contracts and everything they told me about, he basically told me that the contracts were fake and they scared me. We then went searching up the other investors, and it was like they didn't even exist. I realized that everyone I was speaking with were all actors. Even the investors were fake. The whole company was a scam, and I was scammed out of $20,000. Be careful out there. Do your research.
Am I the asshole for not carrying on another family's tradition? No. If this is not your family's tradition, then it means absolutely nothing to you. So why should you have to be the one to carry on the fucking no? That don't make no. Make it make fucking sense. In our house, we have 2 birthdays coming up. My wife's son, Marcel's turning 16, and her daughter, Marceline, is turning 13. Asking them what they want for their birthday, they both said that just the normal gift was great. Seeing that I was confused, my wife helpfully reminded me of the traditional luggage gift. And then I realized there's a family tradition of giving kids a luggage set for their 16th birthday. Yes, but that was my ex-wife's family, not mine. I was never even involved. It was always a thing for them. A few decades ago, one of my ex's sisters got a job at a high-end luggage company. They took over for the next generation of the family, my daughter and her cousins, because she could get it for really cheap and with her discount. My daughter is the youngest of the kids on that side, and she was around 13 at the time. Between the aunt knowing that she was going to be retiring soon and some personal drama, they decided to give my daughter her set for her 13th birthday so she wouldn't be left out. I've always thought the tradition was stupid and a stupid amount of money to spend. Even $1,000 is way too much to spend on luggage for anyone, especially a kid. I wouldn't spend that much on myself. I tried to tell them all of this, but my wife thinks by letting my daughter participate by accepting the gift, I've made it my family tradition as well. And now I'm just singling her kids out. I'm not. That makes no fucking sense. Your daughter was gifted luggage from her side of the family, his ex-wife's family. Your daughter was gifted luggage by them. And simply because you let her take it, that means you must now spend thousands of dollars to buy luggage for my kids. I never bought luggage for nobody motherfucking kids, mine included. I'm not spending extra money on your fucking kids because of a tradition started by someone that is not related to them, nor have they ever fucking met them. That don't make no fuck. This lady, hell no. Hell no. Not caring about my daughter accepting a gift from her own aunt doesn't mean I don't still think it's stupid. There's a lot of differences between you can't have this because it's not worth buying and you can't have this because I think it's inappropriate or dangerous. Also, it would be even more expensive for us to buy it for them than the aunt spent on my daughter. My daughter's set cost me nothing. Her aunt $1,000 because she had a discount. Buying the other two kids' set would cost me $2,000 each, so $4,000. Now, everyone is upset at me because I'm apparently making it clear that I don't care about Marcel and Marceline as much as my daughter because I'm breaking tradition and telling them they don't deserve anything that my daughter has. Am I wrong for thinking this is ridiculous? No, I absolutely do not think you're the asshole in any way, shape, or form. Your wife is being absolutely fucking ridiculous along with everyone else who tells you that you're fucking wrong. She's trying to make this out to be that typical blended family drama where somebody doesn't love the other person's kids. That shit that we see all the time. She's trying to make it out to be like that. But this situation is nowhere near. This situation is nowhere fucking near. And if she's got that big of a fucking problem with her kids not getting luggage, why isn't she buying them? Why doesn't she go out, make sure she's got enough money, $4,000 to buy her kids fucking luggage and make sure that they fucking have it? Honestly, I would just keep a closer eye on your wife because this is 100% her doing. Because you said that the tradition in your ex-wife's family starts when the kids turn 16. They get their luggage set at 16. Your daughter only got hers at 13 because the aunt was retiring and there was other issues going on. Her 13-year-old said that she would like a normal gift. She not supposed to get that for 3 years. If this was a tradition that you were supporting, she wouldn't be getting it for 3 years. So it's 100% something that her mom is putting in her ears so that they can put the pressure on you to treat them like you treat your daughter. This is absolute fucking bullshit, bro. You're not wrong for thinking that it's stupid because it is dumb. You expect me to uphold a tradition that I never supported. You mean my daughter was included on this tradition, so by default, it's now my tradition? That makes no fucking sense.
My husband told me he wants a second wife. We are practicing Mormons and my husband believes that he deserves a second wife. When we first got engaged, I told him that the only way I would marry him was if he did not take on more wives. We've been married now for 6 months and he's already begging me to get a second wife. Part of me understands why he wants it, but the other part of me thinks it's just gratuitous. No man needs more than one wife. I met a few single women at church and he's been flirting with them nonstop. One of them in particular has been flirting back. Everyone in our church knows that my husband is not allowed to have another wife. This one girl keeps trying to get into our lives. She basically shows up everywhere we do, and she's always trying to catch his eye when we're at church. I found out a dirty little secret about her. A few years ago, she used to be a stripper. I threatened her to stay away from my husband. If not, I would tell him that she was a stripper. She actually told me that my husband wouldn't believe me and that she was going to marry him anyway. I caught them texting and she was telling him how lonely she is. I told my husband that she was a stripper and he said that he didn't care. That she needed saving? What the heck should I do now? I don't want a second wife. My husband told me he wants a second wife update. That's when my husband told me that he still wants to marry her and that the church could save her. Since the news of her being a stripper in the past didn't turn him off, I had to start digging some more. I went onto her Facebook and started looking back through all of her pictures. I also went on her friends' and family's Facebooks too. On one of her friends' accounts, I found a post from 2012. They were partying it up in the Greek islands. As I looked closer into the picture, I saw there were 2 men with them. I started Googling the men's names and I found that they were both pimps. The more I searched, the more pictures I found of her with this one guy. And in some of the pictures, they were even making out. This is when it hit me. She was probably a pro. and this guy was pimping her out. My husband is so 2000s that he doesn't even have a computer, so I decided to go print out all of the evidence. I printed out all of the pictures of her and this guy, some of her family's pictures of her drinking and partying. I made my husband his favorite dinner, and then I sat him down. Told him I would never accept a second wife, especially her. When I showed him all the pictures, he told me he felt sick. Apparently, she told him that she was a nun. Remember I said they had been texting? Well, they never stopped texting. Then he confessed that she even sent him a naked picture. Part 2 is my husband told me he wants a second wife update, and he finally accepted that this woman had been a pro in her past and a stripper. He said that he would stop speaking to her. Mind you, this all happened like 2 days ago. I asked my husband to show me his phone so that I could see the messages between them. He handed his phone over and started to cry. He said that she had lied to him and told him that she was a nun. Apparently, after she became a stripper, she decided to leave that life and become a nun. How stupid is my husband that he actually believed her? That's when I saw that she had sent him plenty of nudes. And I asked my husband, "You think that this woman is a nun?" And he said, "You're right, I should have known." We went to church and told on her. Now everyone in the church knows her truth. But things get worse. After she found out that we told on her, she came over to our house and started threatening us. Wouldn't let her in the house, but then she begged my husband to let her in. And he opened the damn door. That's when she begged my husband to take her on as a second wife, and that she would be the best wife and even better than I am. While I'm standing right there. Thankfully, my husband used his one brain cell and said no. That's when she grabbed my hair and started banging my head against the wall. Stupid husband stood there watching. I had to fight her off alone. That's when she looked at both of us and said that we would regret it, and she ran away. And my husband had another confession. They had hooked up once. Part 3 is up. My husband told me he wants a second wife update. That's when he confessed that they had hooked up once. That's when it all made sense to me. She was so upset because they had already hooked up. Then he told me that he had promised her a ring. At this point, my husband has cheated on me. I have grounds to divorce him. I was actually so upset I left the house. A few hours after his confession, he calls me and tells me to come right back home. And when I get home, all our clothes were ripped up. This crazy psycho girl came back to our house, took scissors, and started cutting up all our clothes. She even cut up my wedding dress. She flushed all my makeup down the toilet. She actually stole one of my husband's fire weapons. Now this is the thing that really scares us. We don't know what she's capable of. My husband is so stupid though that he doesn't want to report her to the police. He feels guilty for having taken advantage of her, which in all honesty, he definitely did. He slept with her and promised her a ring, packed up what I had left of my clothes, and I left my husband. I'm meeting a lawyer tomorrow and I'm gonna ask him for a divorce. I just honestly can't believe how stupid he is. And now I'm scared for my life. Thankfully, she doesn't know where my parents live. I'm also leaving the Mormon church, taking my parents on a vacation. F you, husband. After I blackmailed my boyfriend into staying with me, otherwise I would send his sex tape to his coach, everything went downhill. Remember, at this point I had been hiding under his bed for 2 days, and I was wearing a stinky diaper, like full of poo and pee. I went home and showered, and that's when he came over. Then he started tearing through my apartment trying to find the sex tape. I told him I had hid it somewhere safe, and I actually did. I opened up a safety deposit box at a bank, so there was no way he was gonna find it. Then he swore that he would stay with me in the relationship as long as I didn't send that tape. Remember, his coach is the dad of the girl that he had slept with, the one in the sex tape. For the next few days, he acted kinda normal. He was kind of angry, but he was still acting like my boyfriend. That's when I forced him to give me his computer and his phone. And I found out that he had been talking to 4 other girls. And he had been doing some nasty stuff on his laptop. This is what really opened up my eyes. At this point, I kind of started losing interest in him. I wasn't even attracted to him anymore. And I confronted him about the 4 girls. He told me that they were just having fun, and that I shouldn't flip out over that. After the week, I went to the safety deposit box and got the tape. And guess what? I sent it to his coach. You see, not only was my boyfriend breaking my heart, but he was also doing it to the 4 other girls. He made up so many lies about me. Of course, I sent in the video anonymously. 2 days later, he was kicked off the team. The school only expelled him for 3 days though, so he's still in school. And apparently his coach is willing to let him back on the team as long as he apologizes to his daughter. I feel like I need to do something worse to him. Can you guys give me any ideas? Bye.
My ex-husband used to put me down all the time, but I proved him wrong. So after we had kids, my ex-husband decided that all chores at home besides the garden were mine, as I'm a woman and doing housework and minding the kids should come naturally to me and be effortless. He also told me that I didn't have a real job. I was working as a doctor, becoming a specialist. He figured that was the same as being a student. Not even close. He told me that I didn't really make any money. Apparently, the 40% of our income that I contributed was nothing. He told me having kids made me fat and ugly. At the same time, he wouldn't look after the kids so that I could go and exercise, and was himself happy to sit on the sofa eating chocolate and crisps. He didn't exactly look like he did when we met either. He would switch between being offended if I didn't join him in eating and then telling me not to eat shit. Well, he sounds like a big fucking ray of black. That's what he sounds like. He would tell me how lucky I was to have a man like him, really, and how no one else would ever want me, and how I wouldn't be able to manage without him. I divorced him. Good shit. Good girl. Good girl. We had to go to court because he refused to sell the house or to buy my part of it from me. He refused to pay child support. My divorce lawyer, who only handled divorces, said that even though she was used to a lot, he was really something. His lawyer ended up quitting because he refused to accept that the law was as it is, and that no, he couldn't keep all of our marital assets and not pay child support. It took a while, but during that time, I was pretty stretched financially, so I couldn't afford a car. So I had to bike everywhere with my kids in a cargo bike. So I dropped all of the baby weight. Good shit. Good shit. I started going out on dates. I found out that even before I dropped the baby weight, plenty of men were happy to go on a date with me. And they were actually handsome and successful men too. Okay, baby girl. She said, watch the glow up. Watch my glow up. A friend of mine asked to borrow my Tinder profile. She was never single while Tinder existed. Ooh, your friend is a dog. She dared me to go on a date with a handsome guy 15 years younger than me. I did, and he was actually really nice. We dated for nearly 2 years. Did I mention he had a six-pack? And he really just wanted to make me happy. I found out that he was actually my neighbor's son. And when we started dating, his dad was still my ex-husband's neighbor. The lawsuit was still going on. He also had the same education as my ex-husband and worked in the same profession, though they didn't know each other. Once the divorce was finalized and the house was sold, I bought a flat and a sports car. Did I mention that he ended up having to split everything 50-50 and paying regular child support? I proposed a 40-60 split for him to pay 2/3 of what was customary in child support to avoid a lawsuit. And I told him that was less than what the law stated, but he wouldn't listen. So now we have to follow the law. Oh, and since the divorce, he's gained all the weight that I lost. I look just as I did before I had kids, more than 10 years ago. He looks at least 20 years older. He did meet someone new, though. She's very sweet, and the kids love her. They actually prefer her to him. But to someone as shallow as him, I'm pretty sure that he doesn't feel like he's downgraded. He treats her even worse than he treated me, and the kids tell me. I do feel sorry for her. Last time that I had her on her own, I told her that if they ever split up, then I'm fine with her continuing to be in my kids' lives because she doesn't have any of her own. How does it feel to win? How does it feel to know that you won? Your ex-husband knew exactly the kind of gem that he had in his possession. He knew exactly what you were capable of, and he also knew that he would never be able to measure up. He would never be able to compete, even though it shouldn't be a fucking competition. But he 100% knew that he would never be on that level, so he tried to tear you down as much as he possibly could, and you stopped that shit, and you grew. You glowed up, baby. I'm so proud of you. I am so fucking proud of you. You won.
Story time! So before the pandemic happened this one day, I was traveling and I was at the airport and I had to go through security. Obviously, as you do. So I go to security and keep in mind, I was wearing leggings and a t-shirt. Like, it was very basic clothing. There wasn't anything on me. There was no zipper or anything. But when I went through security, I beeped. So the TSA woman was like, okay, I need to use a handheld metal detector on you. Is that okay? I was like, yeah, sure, of course. So I put my arms out and she uses it on me. And the metal detector beeped at around this area on my body. So she was like, okay, I'm gonna have to pat you down. I was like, yeah, sure. So she pats me down and she doesn't find anything. Obviously, I was wearing leggings and a t-shirt. And she was like, that's strange. Have you ever had surgery? Like, do you have anything metal inside of you? And I was like, no, I've never had surgery. And she was like, okay, maybe the metal detector had a glitch. Let me just try to use it again. I was like, yeah, of course. So she uses it again, and again, it beeped at around this area on my body. And she was like, are you sure you haven't had surgery? Like, are you positive? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. I've never had surgery before. And she's like, okay, well, I need to take you to a booth and you need to undress for me. And I was like, yeah, okay. And keep in mind, she was getting very panicked at this point. Like, her eyes were genuinely, like, panicking. And I think it's because she thought that there was maybe a dangerous device inside of me, which isn't funny. So we go to the booth, I undress, and she looks at me, and there's nothing there. And she was like, are you sure that you haven't had surgery? And I was like, I am sure. Okay, I haven't had surgery. Why am I beeping? And she was like, I don't know why you're beeping. There must be something inside of you. I was like, what? No. So she's like, let me just pat you down again. So she pats me down again, and then she found the tiniest charm, like that big, on the string behind my underwear. And that's what was beeping this whole time. We were very relieved at that point.
Story time, and this is Katie's story. When Katie was 16, she used to run track and cross country, so she's got a lot of friends.
Initially, Katie used to run on roads, but she got catcalled a lot while running on roads. So eventually, she found this trail by her high school that she could run on. The trail passed next to a park, then it passed next to a field where a lot of teams would practice, and eventually it would turn and pass next to her high school. So it seemed like a pretty safe trail to run on. There was the park, there was the field where people were practicing, there was her high school. There were people who would actually walk on the trail. Like, there were people around. Safe trail, right? No. So this one day in summer, Katie is running on the trail at about 9 p.m. And if you're wondering why she was running at 9 p.m., it was summer. It was hot. It was still light outside since it was summer. It felt safe to run at that time. It should have been safe. So she's running on the trail. She passes the park, she passes the field, and right before she gets to her high school, the trail kind of turns and it's this bend that's kind of hidden away from the park. So Katie is in that section. She's running and she passes this guy who was in that bend. And right after she passes him, the guy starts running after her. And then he starts hissing at her like a snake. So Katie is running. The guy is right here, like a foot away from her, hissing at her. And she keeps running. And then he goes, "Are you scared of me? Are you scared of me?" So Katie is obviously scared of him. And she starts booking it to get to the end of the trail and get to a major road. So she's running. The guy is running after her, saying these things, hissing at her. And eventually she makes it to the end of the trail and she turns around and she sees the guy at the top of the trail, or like, a few meters behind, just standing there staring at her. Katie runs home. I think this is a really important story to share just because it shows how often and how regularly women are harassed when doing normal day-to-day things. Katie was just on a run. There were people around. This shouldn't have happened. And someone said that in society, we are currently teaching girls and women to shrink their lives by being safe. So for example, some of you are going to say, well, she shouldn't have been running at 9 p.m. Why not? It was light outside. It was hot. There were people around. It should have been fine for her to run. We can't keep shrinking these girls and these women's lives to be safe. Instead, we have to do more to educate boys and educate men to respect women, and for them to also challenge their male friends who harass women. So if you have a friend who harasses a woman, whether you're a guy, a girl, non-binary, it doesn't matter, please challenge them or educate them so that we can stop this, and so that women can go and do normal day-to-day things without being harassed. So that a 16-year-old girl can go on a run without being chased by a guy and be hissed at and be asked if she's scared.
I, 34 female, met my husband's 35 male mistress at his work party, and now I don't know what to do. I never even wanted to go to this party, but he insisted that I attend. It was to celebrate the appointment of a new boss. He begged me to go, even though I wanted to spend time with our 6th son, who's 7. Eventually, I agreed that his mother could babysit and got dressed up for this party that he wanted me to attend. When we arrived, I called home to make sure that my son wasn't showing any new symptoms, as I've been quite paranoid since his strep A outbreak in his school. My husband complained, saying I don't need to be checking up on the kids. We have 3, and just need to let him show me off. I didn't really like how he implied that I was just something to show off, like I'm a trophy wife or something. He introduced me to many of his colleagues, most of whom I forgot because my mind was elsewhere. I texted my mother-in-law telling her to keep me updated, and I tried to enjoy the party. I didn't want to ruin it for my husband and knew that my paranoia would just stress him out too. So I drank some alcohol in hopes of forgetting about that and letting loose. Then the bitch came up to us. She had a smug grin on her face and greeting my husband with a hug and kiss on the cheek. I didn't think much of it. It's a pretty standard greeting. Then she started to say some things that retrospectively started pissing me off. She was calling herself his work wife and that she should help look after my children like it was some normal suggestion from a work colleague. My husband didn't seem interested. How wrong was I? Hours into the party, everyone was starting to leave. I told my husband it was 10 p.m. now and that I wanted to go home and be with the kids. He complained to me, saying that he would rather stay for longer as they were going to some bar now. I told him that I didn't care. I'm going home. He let me go, saying not to wait up for him. I was getting annoyed with his dismissive behavior towards our sick child. Surely he should be just as concerned. I'm out of the building, but I realized I left my phone in the building, so I go back up to retrieve it. That's when I saw them both huddled in the corner, snogging like school children. I just grabbed my phone, took a picture for proof, and went home to be with my kids. I didn't even sleep in our bedroom. I slept in my son's room because I didn't want to see my husband when I woke up. The next day, today, he asked me if I was okay because I was acting off. I couldn't help myself and just asked him how long he had been cheating on me with her. He denied it, first telling me that he only had eyes for me, blah blah blah. But when I showed him the picture, he admitted they had been sleeping together for 3 months now. He was putting aside the fact that his son was ill because of some other woman. I felt sick to my fucking stomach. And he wanted to parade me around like a show pony just to publicly kiss her? How freaking humiliating that these people who I don't even know knew about my husband's public affair before I even had a clue. What makes me even more sick is that I've been suffering from postpartum depression. We have a 6-month-old baby and his dad is off with some other woman. I kicked him out of the house and I can barely look at him. I was distracted during the day with my children, getting them ready for school tomorrow, housework, and finishing painting the kitchen cabinets. But I've exhausted all efforts to distract myself and I can't stop crying, getting mad at him and then getting mad at myself. I feel betrayed, angry, and ashamed. How much am I to blame in this too? Surely he must have been bored enough to go to someone else months after his youngest son was born. Clearly I'm doing something wrong, But what? I gave everything to this man. I gave up my career for him. I became a housewife because he felt it would be better for upbringing of our kids. I can't even stand to look at him, but the idea of divorce makes me feel violently ill, like I'm letting her win somehow. I'm genuinely begging for guidance on what to do here. Do I leave him or do I endure it for the kids? Part 2. I'm at my husband's mistress at his work party and I don't know what to do. I'm currently at my parents' house with my children. I have no idea where he is, to be honest. He didn't come home. He did leave me a voicemail telling me I was being too much and that insert mistress name was way more understanding of his needs. That I became boring after I had my son because of my PPD. My response will come in the form of a divorce, because how do I even dignify his petty voicemail with a response? My father has put me in contact with one of his legal friends. He's a shark of a family lawyer and has worked many successful cases of infidelity. He manages to get good custody and financial arrangements for single mothers. Many of you are concerned about our financial situation, but do not fret. I was in accounting and finance before I left my career, so I handled all of our family accounts. I know about every investment he's made because he would get his advice from me. We do have a joint account and I know everything that goes in and out of that account. He does have a personal account too, so I'm unsure about any money he may have spent on the other woman. My kids will be provided for because they have a trust set up by my father. Their dad has put money into it, as have their grandparents on both sides. I put half of my savings into their trust too. I'm very close with my mother-in-law and we speak on the phone almost every single day. I'll probably have to let her know soon, but only once the legal proceedings have begun, because I don't want him to be tipped off about anything. I love her, but she's also a mother, and mothers do anything for their children. She'll find out soon enough. I haven't said anything to my children yet. They've asked about dad, but I told them that he's just really busy with work. I'll tell them soon, but I understand that divorce can get really messy. I want them to have that youthful ignorance for a little while longer. I messaged my husband that I intend to divorce, and he simply replied okay. I assume that means he wanted this as well. Dealing with my PPD and now this, I have looked into getting myself a therapist. It's been a process, but I believe I found someone who can deal with everything that I'm going through right now. I'm looking into booking an appointment with her ASAP. Many have questioned his incidents on me attending the party, and honestly, so have I. I don't know whether they wanted to get caught or if it's some weird fetish. Either way, it was a repulsive move, but it showed me his true colors. I intend on trying to find some work so I can continue to support my boys, but I haven't worked in 8 to 9 years now, so it's going to be difficult.
Story time on how my dad had a threesome with my brother and another man. Okay, so a quick rundown. My parents divorced when I was 13, and just a year after, my dad got with another man. So at the time, I was 14, my brother was 15, my mom was 34, my dad was 36, and his boyfriend was 30. Keep up with me, guys. The age is important. My mom didn't want to see my dad or his boyfriend, so this was our routine. My mom would pick us up after school, and sometimes my dad would pick us up. But on this particular Friday, my brother wanted to stay at my dad's, but I wanted to be at my mom's. So my brother left with my dad, and I left with my mom. My mom had late shifts for the weekend, so she ended up dropping me off at my dad's. When I walked inside, I heard moaning, but not from 2 voices. It was 3 voices. I immediately knew something was up. I walked upstairs to see my dad, his boyfriend, and my brother doing the nasty. Like for part 2. Story time on how my dad had a threesome with my brother and another man. Like I said, I walked in and my dad, his boyfriend, and my brother was doing the nasty. My dad was actively sticking his inside of his boyfriend's and my brother was sitting in between the mix. Traumatized isn't the word. They all jumped up, but I ran outside and immediately called my mom. My mom came back so angry, she started throwing a whole bunch of books at my dad. But I just held her back and we all left. My dad ended up getting married to this guy and they adopted a child. My mom got full custody of me and my brother, and my dad isn't allowed to see us anymore. My brother is going to therapy and said that it was forced and that he didn't want to. Do I miss my dad? No. Good riddance. Story time on how I sent my nudes to my dad. I'm talking full, clear, tunnel vision to my cat child. Just know this story ends with me getting my behind beat. So I was 17 at the time, and I had a boyfriend who was also 17, and we've been together for 1 year. We were in the same grade, but we always had different classes, so I usually seen him during lunch. My parents were super strict and religious, so we had to keep our relationship on the low. So my boyfriend always asked me to send him nudes, but I never had the guts to send it to him. One day over the phone, me and my boyfriend had a heart-to-heart, and he told me that he would never break my trust and that I can trust him with everything. So I decided I was going to surprise him for his birthday and send him the, The night before his birthday, I decided I was going to send him the nudes exactly at 12 a.m. Biggest mistake ever. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I sent my nudes to my dad. Like I said, I decided to surprise my boyfriend with the for his birthday. When the clock struck midnight was when exactly I was going to send the pictures and wish him a happy birthday. On my phone, my boyfriend name was David with a red heart emoji, and my dad was under dad with the 2 pink heart emojis. 2 very different contacts, but at the same time, way too close. I took the pictures with nothing on. I'm talking full birthday suit. I bent down in front of that mirror, legs wide open. boyfriend, and one in a bed with my selfie stick. I was literally so anxious that I didn't even realize what happened. When I went to go text my boyfriend, my dad texted me. I thought I just swiped up the message to get it out my way, but instead I hit the message. So once I hit the message, it switched me from texting my boyfriend to texting my dad. If you have an iPhone, you know exactly what I mean. But anyways, I didn't realize that I was texting my dad, so I went and sent the nudes. Once I found out, I literally wanted to die. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I sent my nudes to my dad. Like I said, I hit my dad's message by mistake and ended up sending the pictures to him. I still didn't realize I texted my dad, so I just threw my phone on the bed, anxiously waiting for my boyfriend's reply. 2.5 seconds later, my dad barges into the house and is literally screaming at the top of his lungs. I was actually confused until my dad said, "Why would you disrespect your body like that?" Once I realized everything, it was already too late. I got the beating of my lifetime and my phone was taken away, but only for like a week because of safety purposes. When I went to school, I explained everything to my boyfriend and he was so shocked. He did say he appreciated even the attempt. I eventually took nudes directly on my boyfriend's phone, and we're still currently together. But for the rest of my school year, I had to deal with even more strict parents. Watch who you text, guys.
I hid under my boyfriend's bed for 2 days and tried to poison him. Disclaimer is not my story time, it's not me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been dating for 3 months. And when we started dating, I got really jealous. He was my first boyfriend and I just didn't know how to control my feelings. You can say I'm pretty toxic. Part of the reason why I'm so insecure is because my boyfriend is probably one of the most popular guys in school. He's a basketball player and he's about to be drafted. So all the girls are constantly trying to hook up with him. And this drives me insane. Whenever we go out, girls are falling over trying to get to him. A few weeks ago, I heard a rumor that my boyfriend had hooked up with a girl. When I asked him about it, he got really defensive. He got so angry he punched a hole in my wall. And well, this made me start thinking, maybe he was cheating on me. So I basically started stalking him. And that's what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. I'm even skipping class just to go wherever he's going. That's when I decided that I would hide in his room. I even put on a diaper. Part 2 is up. I put on the diaper so that I could hide under my boyfriend's bed without having to get out. Disclaimer is not my story time, was sending me on Instagram. I even took soft food with me so that he wouldn't hear me chewing. I knew he wouldn't be home, so I snuck into his dorm room. That's when I checked his entire room. I went through all of his clothes, even went through all of his dirty laundry just to smell them and make sure he didn't have anything in his pockets. Searched in between the mattresses and I found nothing. At this point, I was just looking for a sign of him having hooked up with somebody. I knew he was going to be coming home soon, so I snuck under the bed. It was pretty hidden underneath there because it's a huge bed. He came in by himself and started changing and went to take a shower. But he took his phone with him into the bathroom, so I didn't have a chance to check it. By the way, he thought that I had gone home to my parents' house, so he wasn't going to be hanging out with me at all. As he was getting ready, he put on cologne, and that's when I knew he was going to go look for another girl. A few hours later, he comes back and I'm still underneath the bed. And guess what? He's with a girl. The same girl I heard the rumor about. They come in there laughing and I can tell that they're clearly drunk. This girl goes to the bathroom and changes into lingerie. And then they started making out on the bed while I'm hiding underneath it. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend is making out with this girl on his bed. I'm hiding underneath it. Suddenly, she starts talking about how she's so happy they're finally a couple. How she's so happy he got away from me since I was such a crazy ex. Clearly, my boyfriend had been poisoning me against her. That's when I realized I really couldn't blame the girl. My boyfriend had clearly told her that he had broken up with me and that now he was with her. My plan was to initially get out of the bed and surprise them, but instead, I decided to wait. I managed to set up my phone while they were doing it on the bed, and I recorded the entire thing. After they finally finish, she leaves. Boyfriend goes to take a shower, and I finally come out underneath the bed. And I sit on his bed. And the look on this man's face when he comes out of the bathroom, priceless. But the best part is that I was filming the entire thing. At this point, I was still wearing the diapers because I had been under his bed for 2 days. I'm obviously looking rough. Then I tell him that I've been under his bed for the entire 2 days. He started calling me crazy and he tried to kick me out. Then I told him that he needs to break up with the girl and come back with me. If he didn't, I would send the video around to the entire school, including his coach, who is the girl's dad. I got him pretty good. So now he's still my boyfriend, although it's forced, to get back at him somehow. I'll keep you guys updated. Bye!
Am I wrong for calling the bride a slut at the wedding reception? Oh shit. I, 22 female, went to a wedding recently for my friend's 22 female cousin. My friend brought me along for emotional support since she was being forced to go. My friend didn't like her cousin at all because, simply put, the cousin is horrible to my friend. She would make fun of my friend's appearance, which included anything from weight, hair, skin, etc., despite my friend being drop-dead gorgeous. This has led to her having major self-esteem issues. On top of that, there was a 10-year age gap between my friend and her cousin, 32 female, meaning it was literally at one point an adult bullying a child. friend's cousin is also just an awful person in general. The quintessential racist, but I have black friends, mean girl who gossips and fights with everyone. However, my friend's parents believe that family is forever no matter what, so she was dragged to the wedding, meaning I got dragged along as well. The ceremony happened and we moved to the reception. Everything was going surprisingly smoothly until I started dancing with one of the groomsmen on the dance floor. Bride didn't like this apparently. I know because she came up to me and asked me what the hell I thought I was doing. I was confused and asked her what she meant. She asked me why the hell was I all over him meaning the groomsman. I didn't know why she was upset about it. After all, she had a new husband that she should be celebrating with. My friend intervened after she noticed the bride talking to me angrily. The bride turned to my friend and asked her why she brought this slut to her wedding. I wasn't too surprised given the stories I've heard about her, but nevertheless, that still stung. My friend told her to back off and not to say that to me. Bride said that I was indeed a slut for dancing with the groomsman. My friend explained to me that the groomsman that I was dancing with was her ex-boyfriend. I turned to the bride and told her that she just got married to another man, so it wasn't like she wanted her ex back. Why would you be okay with one of your husband's groomsmen being your ex? Why was the guy even okay with it? That's weird AF. She then told me that the chances are still high and that I have no right to put my hands on him. I laughed and said, "Oh, so you're the one that's actually a slut." Bride lost it, screaming at me, cursing at me, crying while her husband was trying to escort her away. And all the while I was laughing my ass off. I had a few drinks then. My friend had escorted me back away to our table. Now that the alcohol has worn off, as much as I hate her, I feel like I may be the asshole for saying that to the bride at the reception. According to my friend, she has been getting calls and texts from angry family members asking the both of us how we could ruin the bride's big day. So, am I the asshole?
Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend that she's not allowed to tell my daughter what to do? I've been with my girlfriend for 3 years, but she only moved in with me 6 months ago. I'm a widower, so I wanted to make sure that this was serious before I was okay with moving her in with me and my daughter. Generally, the two of them get along pretty well, and I told my girlfriend at the very beginning of our relationship I wasn't looking for a stepmom for my daughter. She's 16 and honestly old enough that she doesn't need a new mom. Well, last weekend, I went camping with one of my mates for 2 days, and my girlfriend stayed home with my daughter. I knew my daughter was going to a party on Saturday, and I already agreed to it. Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend she's not allowed to tell my daughter what to do? Last weekend, I went camping with one of my mates for 2 days, and my girlfriend stayed home with my daughter. I knew my daughter was going to a party on Saturday, and I already agreed to it. But when I came back from my camping trip, my daughter complained that my girlfriend told her she had to wash off her makeup and do one that's less provocative before she could leave the house. I got angry at my girlfriend and said she wasn't allowed to order my daughter around and she wasn't allowed to prevent her from doing anything I already agreed to. We had a huge fight and since then we barely talked. Am I wrong? Am I the asshole for telling my husband he knew what he was signing up for before he married me? My husband, 38 male, and I, 36 female, have recently got into a conflict over my closeness to my best friend, 36 female. I've known her since kindergarten, and we even went to the same college. After college, we moved into a nice one-bedroom apartment to save money. We quickly invested in a 3-bedroom and 2-bath house, and we renovated together. We've lived there for 5 years, and 4 years ago I met my husband. After a few weeks, he met Anna, and over the 2 years we dated, we all hung out several times. He proposed and wanted us to move in together, but I didn't want to move out of my house into an apartment. Am I the asshole for telling my husband he knew what he was signing up for before he married me? He also couldn't afford the investment of getting a house together. I talked to Anna, and Rob moved in with us a couple months later. After we got married, he talked to me about how my friendship with Anna made him deeply uncomfortable. I'm very close with her, we've had some sleepovers, and even go on little dates. Rob has never previously voiced discomfort with how we are despite knowing us for 4 years. I think he's only doing it now because I recently told him how Anna confessed her love for me when we first bought the house together. I told him this is what he signed up for, and if he had a problem, he should have told me years ago. Am I the asshole for giving my mother-in-law a copy of her own house key when she asked to get a copy of mine? My husband and I recently bought a new home together. His mom has started pestering us for a copy of the key in case of emergencies. I tried to explain to her our house rule, which is only residents of the house get a key. She proceeded to keep complaining and even got the family involved. and last week she demanded a copy of the key sent to her. So instead, I decided to go grab the copy of her key. I grabbed the copy of her house that my husband was keeping for years and sent it to her, along with a note. Am I the asshole for giving my mother-in-law a copy of her own house key when she asked to get a copy of mine? She demanded for a copy of the key to be sent to her, so instead, I decided to grab the copy of the key to her house. My husband was keeping it for years, and I sent it to her with a note. The note read, "Only residents get a copy, so this copy is for the home you reside in." Of course, she was beyond livid about it, and she told the family, and I was called so many names. Now my husband is complaining that I escalated and made a mistake by upsetting her further, and that instead I should have just stuck to saying no. Am I wrong?
Story time about how I found out my husband gave me HIV while I was pregnant. So, me and my husband were high school sweethearts. He was very kind, very in tune about my feelings, and we were like best friends. We never really did anything sexual because he didn't want our relationship to be like that. We were together for 6 years, waited until marriage to lose our virginity to one another. The year before getting married, I noticed he would stare at guys a lot, but I would never really think anything about it because at least he was not looking at girls. Fast forward, we get married, and 2 years later, I get pregnant, and we were both excited. When I get to the doctors, I get my yearly test done for STDs, of course, but as always, I'm clean. Maybe 1 or 2 weeks later, I get a call from the doctor saying I tested positive for HIV. Let me know if you guys want a part 2. Part 2 of how I found out my husband gave me HIV while I was pregnant. Like I said earlier, 2 weeks later, I get a call from the doctor saying I tested positive for HIV. I was shaking and crying, and I was so in shock. And the only thing I ever heard about HIV at the time was that I only had a couple months to live. I couldn't believe the only man that I've ever been with gave me this disease. I thought I was doing everything right, the right way, and still ended up being in a hole. I was so nervous to confront my husband because I didn't think it was like him to cheat on me, and I thought maybe he thought I was cheating. So the next day I pretended everything was fine. I lied to him and told him that my phone died and that I needed his to call my mother. He gave me his phone. I went into the bathroom and immediately I started snooping. As I'm going through his phone, I didn't see any text from girls. So I'm like, maybe the doctor got the wrong test. I'm running out of time. Come back for part 3. Part 3 of how I found out my husband gave me HIV while I was pregnant. So, like I said, I went to his phone and I didn't see any text from other girls. So, I'm thinking maybe the doctor called the wrong person. Anyways, I gave up on looking through his phone and I just talked to him. I sat him down and told him that I had HIV and that I haven't cheated on him ever. He looked at me and cried. He broke down in tears and apologized. I got so upset with him because I realized that he did cheat on me, and I was really upset for our unborn child. So I took all of his clothes, I took his things, and I threw them all out. Right before I kicked him out, I yelled at him saying, "Who was the girl that gave it to you?" And he told me it wasn't a girl. It was his friend David. Story time about how I snuck out of the house and got caught by my crazy psycho mother. Warning you guys, but here we go. At the time, I was 19, and I just got done with my first year at a university. And while I was at school, I met this cute boy, which we're going to call Kendrick. And that whole year, we were talking. So summertime rolls around, and I go back to live with my parents. And when it came to my parents, they were very strict about me talking to boys, especially my mom. And I know I was 19, but my mom did not allow me to go out if she didn't know where I was at. So this one day, Kendrick is like, "Oh, we should go out one night." And I went and told my mom that I was going to the mall with my friends. But as the time got later, it was like too late. And my mom started blowing up my phone. And usually when she does that, I'm in big trouble. So I just decided not to pick up because I know I'm going to get in trouble anyway. So I might as well stay out and have fun with whatever time I had. But that was the biggest mistake. Y'all come back for part 2 because it gets bad. Really bad.
Am I wrong for not letting my dad's wife name or see my baby? I'm 25 and pregnant. My dad got remarried when I was 17. Me and her never got along. She always pushed me and she wanted me to call her mom and then got mad when I didn't. She got mad that my dad was choosing me over her because we would go out together, just me and him. She went through my text messages, got mad at me for talking to my boyfriend about my depression and how I was feeling and not to her. She tried to take the stuff that I paid for away, my phone, car, etc. Tried to make me babysit her kids multiple times, even on my prom night. She tried to make me lose weight by fasting for a week straight. I'm a healthy weight, always was and still am, but that has always been monitored by a doctor due to health issues then and now. Me and my dad still talk, just not as much. He wanted to meet for brunch, so I said yes, unaware that he was bringing her. When they came in, we talked for a bit casually, with my husband there too, until we got into the topic of my pregnancy. She asked me all kinds of questions until she gets to names. She told me that I was going to name the baby Amy, her daughter's name. I politely said no and said we already had a few names in mind. She started saying why she wasn't allowed to name her grandchild and she thought that she would get that right, and I told her it's our right. That was another issue. She kept saying that I was taking away her right as a grandparent and that I've always been such a bitch to her for no reason, and she knew that I never accepted her as a mother from the beginning, but I'm a bad parent if I'm going to project that onto my kid. However, this is when I stopped everything and told her she's not allowed around my kid ever. She kept pushing it, saying that she always knew I was a brat, but to be this bitter to someone who only helped her is absurd. I said that she can think that all she wants, but I'm going to be naming our child whatever we decide, and that name won't be it. Then she decided to try to hit close to home, saying that I was going to be a horrible mother. I'm already not taking care of myself. I look like shit. I'm already eating too much and probably killing the baby with how much I eat. And I just keep adding to how much of a self-centered person I am by taking away her bonding with her grandchild. Whoa, that hit me hard. But I was through. I told her she's not going to be seeing my child ever when she's born, since she wanted to push her luck. Before I could say more, my husband grabbed our stuff and we left. I've never ever gotten so many messages from so many different people in my life. Multiple people are telling me that she was wrong, but I know how she can get, but I shouldn't deny her her grandbaby. Others are saying I'm an asshole and my father is on her side too. I honestly think I'm 100% in the right. It could be self-absorbed of me to say, but I do. But everyone else besides my husband thinks I'm a raging bitch. So, am I the asshole? I do understand people's obsession with naming other people's kids. If you want to name someone's kid, have your own. You can give an opinion like, hey, what do you think of this name? But you can't be pissed off when someone doesn't decide to pick your basic ass name like Amy. Sorry to all the Amy's out there. Don't take offense. But you're not her mom. You're no one to her. She's shown this insignificance you've played in her life. Why would you ever think you had a say in what her child would be named?
I hooked up with my stepbrother and now he's blackmailing me. What should I do? Disclaimers and all my Storytime was sending me on Instagram. Yes, I admit it. I'm an absolutely vile human being for hooking up with my stepbrother. Okay, but he's really, really hot. We're both 18, but this all went down when we were 17. A little backstory. My parents got divorced 5 years ago and this affected me severely. I was so angry at them for separating us. I began to have a lot of anxiety about it. My dad was the one to move out of the house, so my mom and I tried to make the best of it. Not 2 months after their divorce was finalized, my mom met another guy, and he was the perfect man. He was really good looking and the CEO of a huge company. My mom's 45 and he's actually 10 years older than her. Being the angry teen that I was, I didn't want to accept it. She invited him over so that we could meet, but I was pretty much an asshole the entire time. To be honest, after the dinner, I actually ended up liking him. He was really funny, he made my mom laugh, and he understood my humor. All of this, of course, made my mom really happy. A few days later, this man calls me and tells me that he wants to propose to my mom. So he essentially wanted to get my permission first. So I said yes. That's when he moved in with his son. Part 2 is up. I hooked up with my stepbrother and now he's blackmailing me. That's when my mom's new fiance and his son were moving into our house. I decided that I would try to make the best of it. I was always so angry that I just needed to give myself a break. And the first time that I met him was when he moved in. As soon as he came in through the door, I was literally speechless. He was so hot. Like the best looking guy that I had ever seen in my life. I'm sorry you guys, I have hiccups right now. And we couldn't stop looking at each other. We all sat down to have lunch and he and I just stared at each other the entire time. That's when my stepdad told us that after the wedding, we were all moving to a new house. Like I said, he has a lot of money. And I was actually really excited about this. A new house meant a new start. But guess what? My stepbrother started coming to the same school that I did. So we would basically go to school together every single day. That's when we both found out that we had so much in common. While we drove to school, he would always turn to look at me. And I would ask what's up and he would say nothing. But But one night he came into my room and he kissed me. Part 3 is up. So there I am making out with my stepbrother in my own bed. Mind you, I was asleep when he came in. As soon as I realized he was kissing me, I got out of bed. That's when he told me that he knew that we were both attracted to each other and that we should just do it. I stayed quiet and I didn't know how to respond. I felt super shy and embarrassed. Then he grabbed me and kissed me again. I told him to leave my room and he did. But after that, the sexual tension was real. I always caught him staring at me. Even at school, he would stare at me. And he would go out of his way to bump into me. One day we were driving home and he pulls over on a deserted road. He started kissing me and I couldn't resist. We ended up making out in his car for like an hour. After that, he told me that he wanted me to be his girlfriend but in secret. And that he didn't want our parents to find out. But I said no because it's wrong. We live in the same house and our parents are married to each other. Of course, he got angry. Now he just grabs me and kisses me whenever he wants. And he says that I am his girlfriend even if I don't want to. And he told me that if I don't accept, he'll tell his dad about us. I really like him, but I think it's wrong. What should I do?
Storytime on why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So growing up, my parents split and my sister and I would stay with my mom. During the summer, we'd go see our father. My dad was a mortician and he owned a funeral home. When he would do his work, he'd go to his basement and tell us to never go inside of it. At night, he liked his basement. I always assumed that he didn't want us going down there in fear of us seeing dead bodies. One night, me and my sister was up. We couldn't sleep, so we started playing Truth or Dare. And my little sister dared me to go inside the basement. I didn't want to be a punk, so I did the dare. And I found the key to go to the basement. Before I get down there, I, of course, expected to see bodies. But when I was walking around, I didn't see any. But what was crazy was that it sounded like there were little girls crying. If you want to know what I saw, come back for part 2. This is part 2 of why my dad would never allow me and my sister inside of his basement. So, like I said, I went downstairs to the basement and I didn't see any bodies. Instead, I heard whimpering and crying. So, I went back upstairs and told my sister that there was nothing down there. She said that she wanted to see, so she came to the basement with me. When we were both walking around, she said that she heard the whimpering too. My sister had saw a door and it sounded like the noise was coming from behind the door. When we opened it, we saw girls chained up. Part 2 of how I got caught sneaking out of the house by my crazy psycho mother. So like I said earlier, I was out and she was blowing my phone up and I was not answering. Because I knew I was going to get in trouble anyway, so I might as well just have fun. Well, as the night was getting later, I had to go home. And when my boyfriend Kendrick dropped me off, there was a whole bunch of cars outside of my house, and police cars. When I walked into my house, I saw all of my family, uncle, aunts, cousins, police. It was a whole bunch of people in there. I had my uncles and aunt walking up to me asking what happened to me. Said they called the police because they thought I got kidnapped. At one point, I was going to lie and said I got kidnapped because I didn't want to get in trouble. But I just told everybody I was out with a friend. But when my mom saw me, it was over. It was over. I should have just went ahead and buried my grave then and there. Because I got my ass whooped in front of everybody and the cops. This story time is from a follower and she really needs advice. By the way, we're going to call her Jackie. So Jackie has been with her boyfriend Aaron for 6 years. She always thought that they were going to get married until he cheated on her with her sister. Now, it's been 2 years and she got over the situation. And then she got an invitation in the mail from her sister for a wedding. She was, of course, happy to know her sister was about to get married. When she read the name of the groom, it was her ex, Aaron. She was so upset about it, but the rest of her family says it's not that serious. She's debating on going to her own sister's wedding and don't know if she should say something. Comment down below and give this girl some advice. This is why you should never have 2 best friends, but instead, 1 friend. Be careful of being the third wheel. When I was in high school, I had 2 best friends, Naomi and Cassandra. One Saturday night, we went to a party. When we went back home, we didn't have rides back home. Also, by the way, when we were in the party, Cassandra met this guy. When we stood outside the party looking for a way to get home, the guy Cassandra had talked to earlier had pulled up in his car. And he asked her if she needed a ride. She, of course, asked if he could take me and Naomi home. He said yes, but he only had room for 1 more person, and he told her to choose. And she chose Naomi. And in that moment, I really realized who were really the best friends. I asked him to please not leave me there alone, so Cassandra asked the guy if he could come back for me and pick me up. And being the good guy that he was, he said yes. But when they left, he never came back for me. The three best friend trio